Hello everybody, it's WonderCat, and I'm going to be discussing two separate videos today. One from Clay Claymore, which is a response to a Proto Mario video in which he discusses Jimmy Kimmel's late night talk show, where in one of the episodes he was discussing gamers and the new YouTube service that just came up, and how silly it sounds to him for somebody to want to watch a video game in the form of a comedy skit. And then after I've finished this video, I'll take a look at Proto Mario's video, which is a reply to Jimmy Kimmel's reply to the comments that he got on YouTube from it, as well as a mention of this video that I'm going to be playing first. This is entirely unscripted. I may make some mistakes, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the videos, pause in areas where I have something to say, and try to keep it concise. I've done a couple recordings of this video before, and they got way too long. So I'm gonna, without further ado, play the video and give you my opinions.
Is it fun to watch a dickhead trying to be funny? No. Is it fun watching gaming videos? Yes. Is it fun watching Jimmy die? Yes.
YouTube launched a new video network yesterday where you can watch other people play video games. For real, the whole network. It's called We Should All Be Very Ashamed of Ourselves for Failing as Parents channel. Actually, it's called YouTube Gaming, and I don't get that. To me, watching another person play video games is like going to a restaurant and having someone eat your food for you. Just if you like them, play them. But I guess I'm getting old. When I was a kid, you only watched other kids play video games when you ran out of quarters, and then you'd stand there. But apparently there's big money in this. And one of the top video game players is a guy named PewDiePie. He reportedly makes $4 million a year doing this, which is funny because that is precisely how much you would have to pay me to sit through one of those videos of somebody. But if you're a video game player who likes to watch other video game players play video, well, the problem is, where does it end?
Okay, so that's the bit that everybody is all up in arms about, and this is the immediate reply that Clay Claymore has to that. Now, I've never been a big Jimmy Kimmel guy, but I thought that that last part was mildly funny and mostly harmless. Well, personally, I tend to agree with that statement, and I'll get into more what I think of the statement itself on a personal level from what Jimmy Kimmel said. But on the surface, guys, it's a joke. There's nothing to be mad about here. It's normal. On comedy skits, especially TV shows like that, the way comedians in the modern day work is they will find something, and what they will do is they will take it to its logical extreme and compare what is actually happening to the logical extreme, and that's usually where a lot of the humor comes from, which is exactly what he did. Hell, I actually thought it was pretty clever, especially when he brought up the bit about the arcades. Anyways, let's continue.
First they ignore you. Then they laugh at you.
Okay, so right here it says, so gamers, the same group of people who hate it when SJWs and feminists get offended over a harmless joke are apparently just as bad as they are when they get offended over a harmless joke poking fun at them. That's a generalization. You cannot just assume that because group A had a problem with somebody that they're the same people that now in group B are having a problem with this person.
This video is going to be completely unscripted. I've taken a few notes, and you're going to hear some clicks around in the background because I'm referring to my notes and things of that nature. So, Jimmy Kimmel Live is a comedy channel that is on YouTube, and you'll see the hypocrisy and ridiculousness in the fact that it's a comedy channel on YouTube being watched later when I address this whole concern in this video.
Okay, so he went ahead and typed that actually it's a late night talk show, and this is why you shouldn't be a socially reclusive gamer. Earth to Clay. Just because somebody is not aware of a talk show does not mean that they are a social recluse. That is a extreme leap in logic to make. Personally, I don't watch television. I do play games, and you know what? I do go outside and do a lot of other things that pretty much anyone else would do. Just because he has a different form of entertainment that he prefers does not make him a recluse. That's something that you would probably need to know somebody more intimately to say, but I digress.
Let's talk about the video itself. So I've taken a few notes here, and the video opens with him saying, "We should all be very ashamed of ourselves as parents," is the channel's name. You know, the YouTube gaming service, that's the channel's name. Haha, audience explodes. Ha ha ha, funny, funny, funny. Yeah, that's hilarious, right?
In response to that, that's just people in general.
So what he's trying to say is we should be ashamed of ourselves as parents because our kids are watching people play video games. So instead of kids getting into drugs like they were getting into in the 80s and 90s, instead of kids having premarital sex without condoms on and making babies left and right, you know, it's this. This is why we should be ashamed of ourselves. Because our kids are at home in a safe environment watching other people play video games. They themselves aren't playing violent video games. They themselves aren't committing crimes. They're just watching video games. So the audience cheers and jeers them on, alright? So he continues to say, watching someone else play video games is like going to a restaurant and watching someone else eat your food for you. Again, the audience laughs very loudly. Now, this correlation would be correct if every person on the planet had access and the money to purchase every video game there was. I mean, he says if...
Okay, so I take issue with what Proto Mario had to say there. First of all, the purpose of a video game, the thing that differentiates it from a movie, is that it is, by definition, interactive. So, it is comparable, theoretically, to going to a restaurant and having someone else eat the food for you. And if your only defense to that is, well, you may not be able to afford to play the video game, that's not a defense because you may not be able to afford to eat the food. That's not a distinction between those two things. They are very similar. And I'll tell you what, I watch YouTube videos of both people who play games and people who eat food. And you know what? I find them both equally entertaining. So, yeah, I see no validity in that. So, let's continue.
You like them, then play them. Again, not realizing the correlation that video games are expensive, Jimmy. Video games aren't plentiful. Some people can't emulate certain systems. Some people don't have the computer to emulate certain systems. So even if many people could emulate, there are still people.
Another thing on this comment, I know I said I'd stop. He said video games aren't plentiful. Well, food is not plentiful in many countries either. Just thought I would throw that out there.
People out there who cannot, and thus cannot play these old games. Let's say you, for example, wanted to play Contra. The good old Contra from the NES. Now you have about 3 or 4 options to do that, okay? You can play the arcade version on the 360, and get the disc and pay for that. You can get an NES and the original cartridge and hope to God that it still works. Probably does, but it just depends.
Shut up and get to the point!
Would be like saying, you know,
Okay, that Bender cut in was pretty funny.
I would not like to watch the football game. I think I'm just gonna go play in the, football game. So it's a Super Bowl. Let's.
Okay, so Clay's argument here against Proto's argument is why is that always the go-to argument for insecure gamers to use against their detractors? Well, because that is, again, very similar. There's effectively no difference from watching a football game to watching a person play a video game. And that opens up a whole nother can of worms and a whole nother argument about the viability and marketability of competitive gaming that I'm not going to get into today.
Let's just go play in the Super Bowl instead of watching it, right? Like, you can't do that. And on top of that, let me just make the correlation completely redundant here, okay? Let's say you wanted to eat some French cuisine, right? So now you have to hop on a plane, fly over there, book a hotel room, book a plane ride back, figure out the restaurant, learn how to speak French, or... It's amazing how ignorant your correlation was.
No, they're ignorant. That's ignorant.
And I know what some of you guys are thinking. Jimmy probably doesn't write his own sketches, right? And no, he doesn't. But Jimmy is the face of this. And at any given time, Jimmy could have said, this sounds a bit ignorant, guys. This sounds very bad. I've seen stuff being talked about in the gaming sphere on YouTube. Maybe he has or hasn't. And he could have said, I would like you to reword this stuff. Work it around a little bit different. So it's not so ignorant, so that people won't get so upset. And they probably would have said, yeah, Jimmy, you're the face of this. So we're going to do that for you. No problem, So then...
Okay, so, look, I'll go back to the original thing that I said. Everybody, in all sorts of different communities, needs to get better at taking a joke, or even, outside of the case of jokes, learning to accept that some people's opinions on things are just going to be different than yours. There's just going to be times where a person is going to look at something one way, you look at it another way, and you're at an impasse and there's nowhere else you can go. I don't know when we need to force everybody to understand where we're coming from because of tolerance and acceptance stuff started coming from, but it actually has an opposite effect. People are becoming less tolerant of each other and more aware of each other's differences because people are making big fights over the smallest stuff. It goes back to one of the age-old comments that gets replied to in every single video about racism, is that when people are looking for racism in every little situation, even when it has no place in whatever happened or whatever's being discussed, and people are trying to make it about that, it perpetuates more racism, except usually the other way around. Well, it's the same with this. the more that you react to these kind of things and get upset and get sensitive over somebody having a different opinion than you, the more popular that differing opinion is going to become.
And he continues on, and he says he's getting old because when he only watched video games when he ran out of quarters, and everyone applauds heavily, cheering him on. Yeah, Jimmy, yeah, we remember the 80s when we used to play Pac-Man and Pong. Never mind, things have changed for the better.
Okay, so here Clay shows that he obviously has some experience with games, and regardless of what either of them think, for the better is a very, very subjective term, so I'm not going to touch that.
You know, video game arcades used to be synonymous with drug dealers, with crime, with people getting robbed. So when your child was down at the arcade, you weren't sure if they were being sold marijuana or heroin or being taken or being jumped or attacked and things like that, because video game arcades were ripe for people to prey on children, man. And it's very silly, again, that you're trying to make this correlation like it's amazing that you only watched them when you ran out of quarters. And that's fine. Maybe you're way old. Maybe you're an old man. That's perfectly fine. You know, maybe you're supposed to be gray-headed, but you use just for men. Cool, whatever, man. If you're an old guy and you don't understand something, then don't talk about it because you sound like an idiot.
One word. Censorship. Come on, Proto, you should know better than that.
It's just very mean-spirited and ridiculing. Look, man, Jimmy, you understand that there is millions of dollars in this business. Why are you talking so poorly about it? Why are you making so much fun about it?
I would like to take a moment to say that this comment is ridiculous. Go hang yourself with that fat string of bacon in the kitchen, you fucking degen. Well. No comment.
But I want to go back to when he was talking about the individual PewDiePie and how he makes a lot of money off this. I want to talk about why this was very ignorant and stupid of him. So this is a rough estimation here, but around, I believe this is from 2008, there was $3.8 billion in revenue generated alone from the home video game industry, both in arcade and home markets, that combined to be around the revenue of $11.8 billion for the video game industry in 1982, which is the equivalent to over $27.3 billion in 2011.
This is so boring and forever taking.
I agree with that little cartoon skit. I don't see the relevance here.
A man named Ralph Baer received the National Medal of Technology and Innovation from George W. Bush because he created Magnavox Odyssey, the father of video games, quote unquote. And, you know, you could say what you want about it, but there's a picture of him receiving a medal from the President of the United States. Jimmy, have you ever received a medal from the President of the United States? Have you ever met the President of the United States?
Again, how is this relevant to your original point? You were talking about how things are better off now because the gaming landscape has changed, but then you start discussing somebody who created the Magnavox Odyssey, where gaming was born, receiving a medal. And even then, that happened a pretty good amount of time ago. At the very least, we had a different president at the time. So we're talking probably close to a decade.
And now the the important decision of joining the Maverick Rebellion. We are a tight group of individuals who rebel against stereotypes and greater evils that are commonly accepted. ISPs, children being conned out of games, sexism in video games. Enough is enough, and the Mavericks have had it. If you choose to subscribe or stay subscribed, you are joining the fight against injustice.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and say, before I switch from this man's video to Proto's video, Proto, you should probably rewrite that intro. I know it's not my place to say that, but to be fair, it does sound a little bit pretentious. Okay, so I went ahead and replied to this, and my writing was not so great. I had just woke up. But I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the general idea of where I was coming from and what my initial thoughts were here. I said, okay, I came here expecting something outlandish, and to be fair, this isn't. You have a point. It isn't a very well articulated point, and you make yourself look like an ass, but I agree with your overarching idea that people shouldn't be hypocrites, and everyone needs to start learning to take a joke, no matter who they are. However, just as I would say to someone who is railing on feminist extremists, I would say in this situation as well, these people you're complaining about are not the gaming community. That's a massive blanket term, and every community has a vocal minority who goes off the handle. The question is why people feel the need to judge millions of people solely on the actions of thousands. That is why people are so overly sensitive about stereotypes. I don't care if you make jokes for me being black, trans, Republican, a gamer, whatever else you might have on your mind. I'm able to take it as long as it's simply a joke and not a personal attack. In the case of gaming and transgender issues, I get a lot of jokes that are not jokes, as much as personal attacks hiding behind the veil of a joke. Now, do I think this is what happened with the Jimmy Kimmel situation? No, I honestly don't. But I also haven't seen this show at all. But one thing I will side with the gaming community on in this case is that because people are not informed about the types of people playing games and how big of a thing that it actually is, hold on, that has actually become, people make assumptions about you. And if you so much as touch a game console because they don't understand it, it shows like this that sometimes add fuel to the fire, and yes, the ignorance. It's even worse for transgenders because I'm trans, and oftentimes people will assume I am a godless person who wants to spend all day having sex with myself and random men, and it's the next level of gay fetishism or something like that. Hell, I even get some of it from the gaming community, but I'll tell you what, from my experience, the people playing games and watching channels like Proto Mario, organizing Skype groups, etc., are far more understanding about touchy issues like that because of how everybody shuns them. Long story short, while I do agree with your point overall that the world today is too politically correct and can't handle when someone thinks differently from them, or heaven forbid makes a joke, let's not sit here and pretend that all jokes are harmless and people don't get attacked for being gamers. Or don't automatically get lumped in with the kind of people you're making fun of and their asinine comments. It seems like every other night there are stations talking about the next new reason to shut down the gaming industry and blaming every third school shootings on violent video games, or discussing MMOs and talking about how everyone who plays them needs to go outside rather than sitting in a fake dream world and being antisocial. While I do feel the gaming community was most likely wrong in this specific case, more often than not, this is something that is regularly attacked or not socially acceptable for anyone above the age of like 12. Most likely the age group that most of the comments that you cited in your video are coming from, mind you. Now, I did correct some of my writing there. It wasn't nearly that clean. But I'm just going to go ahead and move on from this and switch over to Proto Mario's new video so this doesn't get extraordinarily lengthy.
This will be a somewhat lengthy video, so enjoy the game until we come back, get some popcorn and a soda, and and watch the individuals that can understand video games and video game culture get upset at those who do. To begin this video, I would not be talking about good old Jimmy Kimmel again if so many people were not requesting it. I previously showed how Jimmy's statements and his views on gaming and streaming and watching streamers was ridiculous and most of the time wrong. And anyone can have an opinion, I understand that, but a lot of his statements were just really silly. In that video, I did get one thing wrong though. Jimmy Kimmel apparently did meet the president. Well, good for you, Jimmy, but so did I. I've actually met Clinton, Bush, and Obama. And guess what? It means nothing. Even still, it doesn't give me a magic leg up. So my comparison there was wrong, and I apologize for my mistake. But oh man, Jimmy made a mistake, and then he doubles down on it with another video. So let me be clear, making a video discussing something someone did or said does not make them an automatic pussy. It doesn't make them automatically upset or mad either. It's just some convoluted logic that ignorant people like to use in the comment section. Like, oh, if you don't like it, why are you talking about it? Because you're allowed to share an opinion on the internet. That's why. So
I actually have no problem with that. I completely agree.
what's your issue? Anyways, when people say things like, oh, it was just a joke and you are stupid for taking it too seriously, okay then. So if it was indeed just a joke, and I'm sure it was, does Jimmy love video games? Because in the video, he once again doubling down, talking about how watching video games is doubly a waste of time. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let's...
Whether or not he loves video games is irrelevant. The point is, the man made a joke on a show that the entire purpose of said show is to make jokes. I don't see how anyone could have managed to take that seriously.
just talk about the video. Jimmy starts off summarizing the previous video, implying that this is the most important thing going on in the world right now. This is a tactic to downplay people being upset over his comedy skit. It implies that if he says anything wrong that makes anyone upset, it doesn't matter because there's bigger problems in the world. And while that might be true, it doesn't take away from the video being one of the most disliked videos he did, along with...
It is true. There are much more important things in the world, and even in the gaming community, that you could be discussing right now than a comedian said that he doesn't understand why someone would watch someone else play a video game. When it's said out loud like that, you have to realize that going on about this is silly. This is not important. You could be talking about something much more relevant, like the situation with Pokemon Worlds and how disgusting that it frankly was. Not that I think that those people necessarily deserve the attention, but there are certainly bigger issues that you could tackle than this.
This one, the new one, by the way, which is less disliked, but currently sitting at 36,220 dislikes. Jesus, that's a lot, man. Kimmel goes on to say that it's doubly a waste of time, implying that it is a waste of time to play video games or watch video games. Let me make one thing clear. I want to
As far as everything I've heard related to this subject, he never said that it was a waste of time to play video games, as much as he joked that it was a waste of time to watch them. But again, joke.
express that I'm neither angry nor upset, but clearly his comments are filled with people that really just wanted to hold a real debate with him, to invite him to play games and stream games and be a part of the community instead. But instead, he goes on to play the victim. Well, here we go. Are you guys ready for the lengthy video of a comedian talking about Twitter death threats and hate mail, taking them as a joke? Well, then you will enjoy 4 minutes of Jimmy's reply video here, because that's literally all it is. There were many harsh tweets, things you would expect from the internet, but instead of reporting these threats and moving on with his life, the show decided to write a skit about it. And I'm pretty okay with that, honestly. But if anyone in my comments, or his, or anywhere else thinks that Jimmy is the victim here, no, he isn't. There is an organization in my country that investigates cyber terrorism and criminal activity. If Jimmy ever felt his life was in danger, you really think he would have done this instead of reporting it to the proper authorities? The biggest argument I hear is that it was just a joke. But then, why are people trying to white knight for Jimmy and point out these terrible tweets? Let's look at some of it.
Who cares what people are white knighting him for? Because ultimately, the people white knighting for him are still not him. It doesn't make it any less valid that this was more than likely a joke.
His comments instead, real quick, and point out some of the great critics out there that don't threaten him. Cheryl was a top commenter. The last video, I left a heartfelt comment about what gaming means to us. I even invited you to sit down with me, and genuinely I mean that. But this is just dousing fire with gasoline. First vid, you were making a joke. The second, you just highlighted the most outrageous comments, which was funny, but this one is offensive. I see you acknowledge the nicer comments and get our views more, but you are making our community look worse. We are already struggling as a new community to begin with. You are highlighting the worst of it all and shutting down the real reason why we do it. It's a fun community. Isaac Faro. How is watching someone else play video games different to watching someone else play a sport? Lol. Harry.
Okay, the first comment was well articulated, and I do appreciate that there are still people out there who are able to discuss that kind of thing on a level-headed manner. In response to the second comment, it's not any different. I guess that's the point of the comment.
D. It's sad he can't let this go. Now, these are just a few comments, and many of them are long, and they make great, compelling points. So I suggest you go over to his video and just check out the comments. I mean, that's what I did. But back to the Twitter barrage. Jimmy highlighted some of these tweets to get the audience upset as well, saying, now they're attacking you. This again is a tactic to get the crowd on your side. Jimmy goes on to say that it's okay to watch someone on ESPN in a spelling bee. And I agree, yeah, it's okay to do that, but that generally speaking is a waste of time for anyone that's an adult. We generally speaking know how to use a dictionary and look up words, so it really is a waste of time.
That is an extremely subjective comment. It might be a waste of time to you, but I know plenty of people who actually enjoy that kind of thing. And there's just as little wrong with somebody enjoying a spelling bee as somebody enjoying a gaming-related video.
Saying that it's not a waste of your time, but watching a video game is. Again, do you see the hypocrisy there? I mean, come on, man. Are you seriously going to sit here and tell me, well, watching a spelling bee is not a waste of time? Are you serious? Are you that serious that you're going to double down on that? Okay, then fine. Maybe you really get off to kids spelling words. Whatever. I mean, maybe you get off to adults spelling words too. Who knows? Anyways, that's your own thing. Jimmy admits that yes, it is a good idea.
I know that part was intended to be a joke, but that was rather hypocritical and dismissive. To elaborate on that, again, it's neither a waste of time to watch videos nor to watch a spelling bee inherently. People will find entertainment in pretty much whatever they want. This is no different than, somebody thinking it's a waste of time for two people to have, like, rocks and put them on wheels and race them. Some people will like that kind of thing. Or snail racing. A lot of people, they'll get into that sort of stuff. And that's perfectly fine. Just as watching a video game video is no different than watching somebody play a sport, it's no different for somebody to watch a spelling bee or a snail race. If it entertains you, who the hell cares?
And concedes that watching a game to know if you want to buy it or not is a good thing, which makes me feel that he's not completely gone. He realizes that there's applications for this and that it's not a total waste of time. But then Jimmy continues to say that he loves making people mad. And then Jimmy goes on to say that he will try streaming, playing games, watching them, and if he doesn't like it, he will shut it down. I don't understand that final statement. Yes, I know it's sarcasm, but I'm not really understanding that if he's trying to make a joke about people not agreeing with him or something else here. He says, one more word out of you little rats, and no one will ever watch anyone play video games again. And that's very subtle, Jimmy. This is almost as if he's acting like a parent, which is implied heavier when he goes on to describe gamers as 12-year-olds that he's arguing. Okay, so I honestly feel that Jimmy has received some good criticism and some really stupid tweets, and at the end of it all, what do I think of all this? Well, he said it himself.
Okay, well, before you get too far into that, I will agree that last bit was unsettling, to say the least. Again, I know that it was a joke, and I know it definitely was not directed at us. It was directed at the kind of people that would post those tweets in the first place. But maybe that one was a little tasteless.
He likes making people angry. Did you get trolled? Listen, honesty time. When I was really young, I enjoyed doing the same thing. Like around the 3rd grade. I personally stopped enjoying this and stopped enjoying making people angry. And I saw it a lot in high school as well. And the immature guys, always trying to piss people off, talking behind their back, starting rumors. It was pathetic in high school for me. That stuff kind of stopped when I graduated high school because women adults and women men don't really do that stuff as often. So
I mean, I don't have a problem with anything, but that was pretty funny to hear you stumble that way, because I have a habit of doing that kind of thing myself. Makes me feel a little better.
when a major comedian on a television show with a pretty large YouTube account comes out and uses the whole "I was just joking" as a defense and doubles down on it, highlighting the worst people, it makes me wonder what kind of person is this? I personally take no offense to what this person said, but other people do. They cannot see through his facade. He is a discount actor, a B-lister, and he does not star in big-budget Hollywood films, but he sure does deserve an Oscar for when he says these things. Because either he is joking all about it, it's just one big joke, or B, he is completely serious, and either way, it's not best
I'm definitely gonna go with the former.
way of going around these things, nor are they good jokes. I think I can explain partially why the gaming community is so upset.
With the first part, I don't think it's the best way of going about it either, especially the second video, or, well, specifically the second video. But the second comment that you made, that nor are they good jokes, again, that's subjective. Please stop stating things that are inherently subjective as fact.
The gaming community is terribly banned by the media, shunned and shit on by everyone from school shootings to the recent feminism and the Anita Sarkeesian type critics. This only adds fuel to the fire, and as I said in the last video I did, Jimmy represents no one but the people that watch him and agree with him. And by the numbers, a quarter of his total viewership is around 18-49-year-old demographics. So his targets for his shows are adults to late adults, just before retirement persons. In summary, I would say the reason Jimmy doubles down on his views and thoughts for the most part is due to his thought process. Jimmy's much older than 18. Jimmy doesn't understand how quickly technology has changed, and most people who are on TV do not and are stuck in the 90s mentality.
How can you comment that someone is stuck in the 90s and does not understand the evolving technology when you do not know them? I had this same kind of comment to, what's his name that replied to you? Clay Claymore. I had the same comment to something he said about you. You do not know this man personally. How can you comment on his characteristics?
Games are for nerds. Stupid people. Kids, right? Yes. And that mentality agitates people who want to like him, because I am sure there are a lot of people who did watch him regularly. People who had their feelings hurt that like to also play games, and his statements struck a chord with them. So when someone says something,
if those people quit watching his videos that they previously liked, where all of those videos were likely in the same structure about many, many different topics, because this is how comedians work, and he was riffing on all sorts of other different kinds of people, but when they found it funny then, but when it happens to their community that they are personally attached to, then they're offended. Well, then they're hypocrites. Now, do I know Jimmy Kimmel's show well enough to know that he's the type of comedian that has riffed on various different communities and types of people? No. But from what I do know about comedians like him, usually they touch on many, many different communities in the same way, that he did about the gaming community. So I'm holding true on that statement.
something that you personally do not agree with to a point that it becomes a problem for you personally, then it causes issues with the ability to watch them or listen to them in the same way. It's the same exact reaction people had with Chick-fil-A in the anti-gay comments. Yet those comments had no bearing on the quality of the product, chicken, but many people boycott them now. So I want to close on this. There are a lot of videos out there, even so far as someone making a video reply to me on the subject as well. I invited that individual to talk to me about it, but then instead they called me a pussy and removed the video after I requested they give me a heads up if they were going to use my footage and not edit it in any way. But he didn't remove the video. Instead, he just uploads the video with the audio only. No, I'm dead serious. He re-uploads the video with a full black screen behind it, and some Windows Movie Maker basic font replying kind of to my statements. Amazing lengths people will go, and this is after I went to the lengths to invite the guy to my show to talk about how he felt. I will leave a link in the description below for you to view it at your leisure, but just be aware that it is a 10-minute video with a mostly black screen. You know,
Yeah, that situation is a shame. Look, I understand why he may have been defensive. He talked about the fair use bit at the beginning, and I understand why he may have been defensive about this specific issue, and he might have felt like he was being censored, but at the same time, it doesn't sound like that guy handled that very well. It sounds like he pretty much just wanted to get a point across, and he didn't really, like, he was too much of a coward, I guess I would say, to discuss it directly. Hell, even though most of my opinions are more or less the same as his on this matter, I would love to be in that position. If I was in his position where I could have talked to you directly about this, well, hell, that would be amazing. But, considering that's not a thing, I'll just say what I said before, in that, look, people need to stop taking this kind of thing seriously. Relax. There are far worse things going on. And let it go.
that kind of brings into question whether or not it's actually a video and more like just audio. Even larger YouTube partners like me and Alpha Omega Sin weighed in on this with very different viewpoints, and in the end it just boils down to how you perceive it. Just check this comment section. I'm sure there's going to be people throwing out the words like butthurt, pussy, mad, angry, etc. But in the end, it's your own personal decision to be that person that continues to not understand video games, or the person who can understand it for what it is, a multi-billion-dollar industry with a massive community. I've been your host, Proto Mario, and I'm signing out. Good gaming, and God bless. And now, the important...
Now, for the last comment there, the thing is, a lot of people don't care to understand that kind of thing, and that's fine. Not everybody has to understand each other. Does that, by definition, make them ignorant? Yes. I don't disagree with that for a second. But, as they say, ignorance is bliss, and some people just enjoy being ignorant. I deal with it all the time on transgender issues, as I was talking about before. Now, if their ignorance leads them to do something against the person or group of people, that is not good. That is like wrong. However, if they're just saying, hey, I think gamers are childish, and they leave it there, who cares? You have much more important things to be concerning yourself with, and if you are giving those kind of people attention, you're kind of proving their point. I feel like this entire video reply series from both sides was handled really, really poorly, and both of you, I'm sure, have much better things that you could be doing with your time. Alright, everybody, I know this has been long and heavy, but this has been WonderCat, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. And if you must discuss this stuff, please do it in my comment section. Do not go to either of these two channels and start up a ruckus. That is not my intention from this. I just wanted to get this stuff off of my chest because I had a lot to say. Alright. Have a good night, everyone.